Right. We want to welcome everyone to our live streaming today. Uh, Apologies, we have to sort of have a bit of a shift on the program today. That is the shift of time because of some other uh, things that we have to attend to within the community. But yes, we are right here. Once again, we know there are some of you that usually join us from 6 p.m. on Sundays. So, great apologies. We'll kick off just right now. As usual, I have Alagba Femi Odedeyi from Yoruba Referendum Committee is right on here with us. And today we'll be talking about Yoruba Liberation and September 2022 because many things are happening this September. And those are things that we now want to run across Alagba Femi Odedeyi so that he will be able to give us a sort of a guidance, from his own view and the view of his organization on what we should be looking towards, what's his own advice of what we should be doing. And remember, I'm talking about Yoruba liberation. So this is for all agitators, Yoruba agitators, Yoruba movement groups, and of course, anyone that has the interest of the Yoruba nation at heart. So please stay tuned as I bring in Alagba Femi Odedeyi. Right. So, Alagba Femi Odedeyi, you are welcome to the program once again.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for the program. And like you said, we apologize for the delay, the slight delay that occurred today, and we hope we'll be able to meet up with the issues that we need to discuss, and then we will move on from there. Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Already we have more grace, and that's a message already that is right
Okay.
for us. Thank you very much. The person that has dropped that have to please do allow StreamYard, give StreamYard permission because that's when we'll be able to see your name. But thank you very much for that comment. And today we're talking about Yoruba Liberation and September 2022. In my opening brief words, I did make mention that many things are happening this September. Secondly, also, there are people that have a sort of a hope that something
Something will happen.
important or something will happen
Yeah.
this September. Now, let's pick it one by one.
Yes.
Now, there's going to be the 77th General Assembly of the United Nations.
Yes.
Is coming up on the 13th of September. That is next week. And at that assembly, the president of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, will be giving a speech. I think it usually falls around the second week. The second week of the assembly.
Yeah.
So probably something from about 20 to 25 or thereabout. So he will be giving a speech there. One of the movement, Yoruba Liberation Movement, and this is where I said some will be putting their hope in something very a core event. They're hoping because from some of the videos we've got, it was claimed that definitely Buhari is going to say something about Yoruba nation at the at the UN General Assembly. Now, they went further to say that is going to be a declaration. So that is one. So there's hope. Some group have hope that something is going to happen. Also, we are aware that Professor Akitoye, heading Ilana Omodua, wrote a letter to the president requesting for a negotiation of the exit of Yoruba nation from Nigeria. And that becomes number two. The deadline date, because there is a deadline for the president to respond to that letter. And he said they were advised by, I think, one of the nations they've contacted in relation to the liberation in relation to Yoruba nation exiting Nigeria and standing as his own as a sovereign nation. So we have that, and that is put as to the 28th, if I didn't get that wrong. So it's been a 28 or 30. I kept
30. September 30th.
Yes, September 30th. So
yes.
At the president must respond. Otherwise, there will be further actions, which they've really not told us what it was going to be. There's another group. I think this one also is linked with profs group. There are those people that are actually saying that they were going to declare the Yoruba nation at the end of September. Although in the last video made by Professor Banji Akintoye, I think he was sort of issuing a warning that they should not declare anything. So, but those are the many things that are happening or about to happen in September. And the last of it is the kickoff of the presidential, that is Nigerian presidential campaign on the 28th of September. So we have these activities or events that are conflicting. I'll put it in conflicting. The reason for saying it's conflicting is why one is pushing in the direction of having another president, and with the hope also of having a president that is from Yoruba. We have this other part that are also saying that, listen, Yoruba is leaving Nigeria, and they've taken steps up to the point of writing the presidency. Up to now, we've not heard of any response from the presidency yet. So we will say maybe it's conflicting, but then there is a news that just came out, I think it was yesterday or very early today, that Professor Banji Akintoye even said that if Ahmed Bola Tinubu wins the election, the presidential election, they will still not stop the agitation for Yoruba nation to exit Nigeria. Now, I've put all these things down, and then we'll come around to take it one by one. Now, it's September 2022. You are in the trenches with those that are pushing to liberate the Yoruba people and the Yoruba nation. I mean, without the people, so Yoruba people, Yoruba nation.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific from your own view that we should be expecting to happen before September runs out?
Well, so far, I don't think anything will happen. all the various things that are being examined have been in existence before September. One cannot say that they are coming to a head in September. The reason being that out of all the various things, the only thing that is certain, or the two things that are certain in September, is that they will lift the ban on campaign. The politicians will start campaigning for the elections. Buhari is going to go to the UN and make his speech. Those are the two things I can see that will happen. I mean, barring any unforeseen circumstances, maybe a coup or something like that that will come about. So, barring that, those are the two things. The other things, the ultimatum that was given to the federal government to respond is neither here nor there, because, like we have said before, if the excuse me, if the federal government wants to humor them, the federal government will respond. But if the government wants to take the official stance, they will just ignore it. And if they ignore it, those who made the demand have no way to enforce their demand. So when September 30 comes and the federal government doesn't say anything, well, what are they going to do? From available evidence, there's nothing they can do. They can make a declaration. Yes, we are independent, Yoruba nation. This fine. How do you sustain it? What is the territory that you have control over that you can retain? These are the elements of sovereignty. So, to all intents and purposes, I will simply say that they are doing the Yoruba people a disservice by making such declarations and raising the hopes and expectations of people for something that is not politically feasible. And if it is not politically feasible, why are we pushing it? And from what Professor Akintoye said, that if Tinubu becomes president, it will not stop Yoruba agitation. Yes, it will not stop it. If it doesn't stop it, it doesn't have to stop it. But the basic issue still remains. What are the legitimacy of the demand? So if Tinubu becomes president, and then we say we want to, Yoruba nation must leave Nigeria, there must be a legitimate reason for it. Not to satisfy any intellectual curiosity, but even to fight any battle. That is why when they start wars, when wars start, people, I mean, those who start wars, they lie, they cheat, some will tell the truth. They have to justify it. It has to be justified. And in this case, it has to be doubly justified because you have not been prevented from being the president. You may not like the person who becomes the president, but you have not been denied. Right? When Awolowo was denied, that we saw it was denied in 1959 and 1979 and 1983, the Yoruba did not claim they would leave Nigeria. It was a Yoruba person that denied Awolowo the presidency in 1979 by saying the best man need not win the election. And we know the whole thing, how it went down. In 1993, when Abiola was denied, the Yoruba did not say they are going to leave Nigeria because they were denied the presidency. In fact, it was the Yoruba that took on the fight for democracy and anti-military rule at that time. So if a Yoruba man now becomes president, it will become a difficult task to now say, yeah, we still want to leave or whatever it is they call it. So there's a problem of conception. That is how I will put it. the struggle for self-determination, or the struggle for self-determination or freedom does not necessarily involve sovereignty. It does not. In other words, sovereignty is not the automatic end of self-determination. If it comes that way, fine. If it doesn't come, fine. Because again, we also have to consider that the Yoruba people are not in isolation in Africa. Africa is undergoing, currently now, we are still undergoing what I would call foreign invasion. China, the US, the UK, France, they are still scrambling to control Africa. So when we now throw in a conflict into the mix, that will certainly emerge when the Yoruba forces say they want to go, and then they create their own military, and then they start fighting Nigeria, then the whole thing becomes like another Somalia or Congo Republic. So we have to take all these things into consideration. So we cannot be overly emotional about this thing. We have to look at the source of the problem, that whether Nigeria's problem is because the nationalities in Nigeria don't have sovereignty, or whether the nationalities in Nigeria are not even allowed to exercise their control over their nations in a commonwealth. So, yes, it is not the Africans that brought about Nigeria, it is the British. We all know that. But again, history is not a linear function that it must follow particular steps. Things have happened in history and things are going to continue to happen. So the question now is, what are we going to do to influence the history that is coming? And when they now say, yes, but those who don't give you restructuring, for those who are saying restructuring and restructuring, if they don't give you restructuring, so how can they allow you to go? Right? If you are saying they don't allow restructuring, therefore you want to go. Now, if they prevent restructuring, which is a milder, in a sense, a milder form of, autonomy, how are they going to allow you to go? They don't seem to be asking that question among themselves. That you ask for, out of 12 things, you ask for 2, and they refuse to give you 2. And then you say because they refuse to give you 2, you are going to dabaru everything. How are you going to do that? If you cannot force them to give you the 2, how can you force them to allow you to go? They don't seem to. So that is a question that has to be asked and answered. Otherwise, we'll just be running what Yoruba don't pay ni arudan, just be running around looking for answers that are not there. So that's why I said, so far, the only 2 things that are going to happen, September, Buhari or whoever he wants to send will go and address the UN. That is their standard practice. It's an annual ritual. All the various heads of states will come and say what they want to say, and they will go. Then, when September 28th comes, hopefully they will lift the ban on electoral politics and they will start campaign. When September 30 comes and no response from Buhari on the ultimatum, then we will see what they will do. But for September 30, it's either Buhari will respond or we will not respond. So, but the question now is, they have told us that there's something they are going to do. So, all these things, and for them, when they say, well, Buhari, it is laughable, really. When they say, when Buhari gets to the United Nations, he's going to talk about Yoruba self-determination. It's so laughable that you just think whether those who are making such statements know anything about global power politics.
Right.
Yeah. If the guy is oppressing you at home, you now expect him to go to the United Nations to go and say, yes, we have given them self-determination. Or giving the, I mean, so let's be factual and realistic with what we are proposing and what we are expecting. So we take it, what do we expect Buhari to say at the UN? We can speculate on that. He will talk about his achievements in office, whatever they are. He will talk about terrorism in West Africa. He will talk about ISWAP and Boko Haram in West Africa. He will talk about his leaving office. He will talk about wanting to oversee the free and fair election. He will,
Election.
in Nigeria. Those are the things he will talk about.
Right.
So don't let's kid ourselves, and you can mark it down. You can write it down. Those are the things he's going to talk about. Now, if he wants to talk about anything about self-determination, he will consider them to be anti-government exercises, and can even go further against the Yoruba and the Igbo. That look, we have not done anything to Yoruba people. This is what is happening. Somebody is contesting election on their behalf, or at least Yoruba man contesting election. On the Igbo side, the Igbo is also having a candidate that is contesting election. So what is their problem? So, and then you say it is not elections we want and blah blah blah. So if it is not elections we want, then what do you want?
Yeah.
So these are issues, and what September has done with all these things is to now bring home all these issues, to bring them home to us so that we can relate with it. Because if you can't do anything practical after September 30, and if Buhari goes to the United Nations and doesn't give you your self-determination, then the question is, where do we go from here?
Right. Let me quickly ask
Yes.
Nigeria has a rep at the United Nations.
Yes.
In terms of that representation, and bearing in mind that in the United Nations, is whether consciously or unconsciously, whether it's just to save face, they are meant to look at the welfare of each nation.
Yes.
Within that body.
Yes.
The fact that Nigeria has a representation, is that a plus or negative? Is that positive or negative for Yoruba agitation for a different nation?
It is a negative in the sense that every member of the United Nations has a permanent representative. That is, every member that is recognized to become a member, they have. And what do? The permanent representatives at the United Nations protects and promotes the interests of the country they serve. So everything that the Yoruba nation or Biafra, everything that they are demanding, the permanent representative at the UN will have answered them. Because let's even assuming that they send a complaint to the UN, the first thing the UN will do is to ask the permanent representative what the situation is. And the permanent representative will tell you the government position. This is what is happening, this is what is happening, and that is it. So that's why I said it is negative. So, and you don't expect the permanent representative of the UN to now start advocating for self-determination of the peoples. They will have removed him or her a long time ago. When I will give an example of what happens. I think it was 1977 or 78, when Jimmy Carter was president of the United States. So he appointed Reverend Andrew Young, who was with Martin Luther King and all the rest, the civil rights movement and all that. So he appointed him as the U.S. UN representative, the U.S. representative at the UN. Then something happened between Palestine and Israel. And Andrew Young, because of his civil rights background and all the rest, supported Palestine against Israel. He didn't last 24 hours in the post before he was removed, because he went against the official position of the United States. They just removed him. And even recently, we see how when I think it was Obama, when Susan Rice was to be made the Secretary of State, and when she was at the United. So when they have a permanent representative at the United Nations, it is the official recognition of the legitimacy of that government. And that permanent representative cannot act contrary to what the government stands for. If it does, the government will remove him and replace him with another person. So it is negative in that sense. And I think we've mentioned it before. When I think it was the 74th General Assembly, there was I think a Nigerian was the president of the General Assembly at that time. And he has a consultant, a special advisor, who is even also a Yoruba, to advise him on things like that. And that advisor wrote a lengthy piece, even castigating the idea of what he called Yoruba sovereignty to the UN.
Wow.
So you have all these things going on, and they don't have, that is the Yoruba nation now, they don't have the means of enforcing their rule or their demand in Nigeria. So they have no, so it's like what the Igbo people will call wild goose chase, what the Yoruba people will call Arodon, wild goose chase, Arodon, and all the rest of it. So it's a negative thing. The only way it can become positive is when there is enough crisis in Nigeria in such a way that the permanent representative cannot defend the Nigerian government.
Right.
That's the only way it can become positive. Other than that, we'll just be making, how do I call it? It will just be a joke.
Would it be that, except there's what we can call a total breakdown of law and order?
Yes, that is when the government is unable to sustain itself in power or to ensure stability. You know, one of the major conditions of the United Nations is the question of stability and order. So that's why they send United Nations peacekeeping forces and all the rest all over the world. That is one of their primary responsibilities, to ensure stability. So when the Nigerian government cannot ensure continuous stability, which is not yet the case, then the whole question becomes who represents Nigeria, who are the various forces that are in contention. Then they will start negotiation and all the rest of it. So outside that, the UN representative is the sole official voice of the Nigerian government that the UN will recognize.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you very much for that. So I mean, people have been talking of the possible thing that could happen.
Yes.
There is it seems that we are once again at the point we were in the 60s, or would I say late 50s, where we have people vying for to be the head of the country or the president of the country, as the case may be. And we have candidates from the three major tribes, ethnic tribes in Nigeria. That's the Yoruba, the Igbo, and of course the Hausas. We call them Hausas, although some people will break it down. Fulani. So the I'm still coming back to the possibility of the Yoruba person winning. But in the first instance, we're still talking about September and things that are going to happen in September.
Yes.
The restriction on campaign is going to be lifted.
Yes.
On the 28th. In the news that came where Professor Akitoye was talking about Yoruba Nation, he was appealing to the members of the Yoruba Nation now. In fact, that is where he spoke about even if Bola Tinubu became or becomes the governor,
the president, yes,
that they will still continue to agitate for Yoruba Nation. But he did mention something that they've actually sent messages to all Yoruba Nation now followers that they should not disrupt campaigns when, whether is Bola Tinubu or Atiku or Obi that comes around to campaign, that they should not disrupt them. And so far, so good. We've had some few processions for one candidate or the other. We have the Obi Dati. They've had some couple of outings. It's been very, very quiet, and I mean in terms of trouble. There's not been any violence and co. Do you think that this could change if the campaign itself goes live? Bearing in mind that in the past we've seen parties, this is even between parties, where they sort of damage each other's campaign properties. But now we have this where we have a group within the Yoruba liberation movement saying that they don't want any election in Yoruba land. They are not voting. Do you think we might experience a sort of disruption to the campaign? Because in the East, we received a video of some people destroying Labour Party's registration. In fact, the makeshift space they were doing for, I think, the registration of campaign or something, they pulled it down. They shot into the car of the person that seems to be like in charge, although the person was not there. But looking back into what has happened even in Yoruba land before, I'm talking about the unfortunate conflict we had even between Baba Awolowo and Baba Akintola. Then we have the Fani Kayodes and co. It's just looking at it, do you think any issue of conflicts, physical conflicts, which we call violence, erupting, those people that want election and will happily go out and campaign for a candidate, and then the people within Yoruba that said, no, we don't want any election in Yoruba land?
I hope not. I hope it doesn't happen for various reasons. One, if it happens, and it happens only in Yoruba land, the Yoruba will end up being the losers.
Okay.
Why? Yeah, they will end up being the losers, and whatever the results of the elections, we will have to contend with it. Now, so taking that alone, if it happens and it is from the side of the Yoruba Nation people who don't want election and all that, and then they create such a situation that there are no elections in Yoruba land, and the elections held in other parts of the country, and then they now somebody, whoever is announced to be president, has become the president. Because of the activities of these Yoruba Nation now people who have caused the violence and prevented the elections from taking place, we will now be formally and legally and legitimately under what I will call external domination, what the Yoruba will call Afowofa, because you have simply destroyed your own chances. That is number one. Number two, before the whole thing, if it happens like that, before the whole thing died down, you will see 4 years down the drain, they will say there's going to be another election. Definitely no Yoruba person will come up and say they want to contest. So that will reinforce the Afowofa thing. Now, they can now say, but Yoruba land will have gone and blah, blah, blah. I keep asking, if Yoruba land will go, there's no need to disrupt the election. Why don't you just go?
Yeah.
They have no capability or capacity to go anywhere. They are not interested in going anywhere. They're just interested in causing disruption. That's what I see. So when they cause that disruption and the unimaginable happens, I can tell you most of those who are advocating for Yoruba Nation now will disappear.
Right.
Because at that point, they will have to fight the battle. It's no longer, at that point, it will no longer be an intellectual battle, because your external enemies, in quotes, will take over the land. So you have to fight them. And then they take over because of your, directly and indirectly because of your activities. So what argument are you going to present to them? That is one. Two, if it doesn't happen through them, let's say they didn't do anything, that the violence happens from another source, like the so-called obedience. They are, in fact, one of them, and it was reported, and there's a Yoruba man who calls himself a self-determination or Dele Farotimi is a popular name, I think.
Yeah.
He said, if Obi does not win, Nigeria must be prepared for a revolution. That's a Yoruba man. So to them, they have already made up their minds that Obi must win. So it's like what we have in the United States, where somebody said, well, I lost because they stole the election. And America is still, with all their democracy and the institutions and everything, 2 years down the line, they are still grappling with that repercussion. That it was only by chance that the Congress was not taken over on January 6, 2021. Why? Because somebody claimed that the election was stolen from him. So if, like the Farotimi says, that if Obi doesn't win, they should expect a revolution, that means those people who call themselves obedience will claim that the election was stolen from them. So when they claim that the election was stolen from them, that can create its own crisis. And guess where the crisis will come? Lagos, Ibadan, Yoruba land.
That's it.
So that is those are the realities on ground. And when that crisis comes into Yoruba land, well, the central government will just leave you to fight yourself out. We've seen it during the NSAS. Before the NSAS started something, some of us were saying, look, this is not going to be this. By the time it happened, they were burning down Yoruba businesses. So, if the violence comes from their side, that will be the repercussion. And then when the violence comes from their side, it is not the Yoruba national people that are going to be fighting them.
Okay.
Because they will say, SAB will say there's no election. So why are we bothered? So, to all intents and purposes, the violence comes from either the Yoruba nation now, comes from the OP people, or if it suits the government itself to come from the security apparatus so that they can postpone the election. And when they postpone the election or cancel the election, they will now say, let us have a doctrine of necessity. Let us have a national government that will now do this and do that and do that. By the time they finish with that, they will have jeopardized even any Yoruba that wants to come up. Why?
Right.
They have the census coming up in 2023. If there's no election, they will do the census. Why will they do the census? Will they say that people are rushing from the north to the bushes, the forest in west, and blah 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 and all that? The Igbo people are already claiming that we are a minority now. So by the time the census figures come out, the Yoruba will have become a minority in Yoruba land.
Right.
So where if there are no elections and then they have the census and then they have a national government and we are a minority, then, well, the Yoruba nation now can go and set up an army to fight for their nation at that point.
Okay.
So these things call for sober reflection. It's not a question of what Fela will call Shakara Oloje. We have gone past that Shakara now. And the people who are fighting know these things. Was it not last week, or 2 days ago? You know, this guy, Senate President Lawan,
Yes.
who was to be made the consensus candidate for APC. When the APC chairman said they must punish Tinubu for what he said in Abeokuta, he said it openly, they must punish him. Then they went and brought in Lawan as the consensus candidate before the northern governors rejected him. He went to meet with Babangida and Abubakar. Of course, they won't tell us what they spoke about. He said he want to greet them to recuperate and all kinds of crap like that. But if you look at the antecedents, it was Babangida and Abubakar essentially that ended up making the transition program that ushered in 1999.
Definitely.
And what we are doing now. And then, so we cannot discountenance anything. So if they now come up with any plan to scuttle the elections, and the Yoruba nation now have no military means of countering them, and they don't, and the political elites in Yoruba land have been thoroughly discredited and rubbished. So what do we do? Where do we go from there? And for the Yoruba nation now, people, if they look at political developments and how it is evolving, they will have a rethink as to what they are doing, either in terms of tactics or strategy. Yes, Yoruba nation now may be a tactic, it may be a strategy, it depends on how it is deployed. But listening to Makinde, who of the PDP,
yes,
he was talking, I think, a day or two ago, and there are crises in the PDP. He said that even if the PDP is talking about restructuring, but the PDP cannot restructure itself. Therefore, it cannot be relied upon. And then he said the negotiation that brought Nigeria into being in 1960. He didn't even talk about 1999. He talked about 1960, about the constitutional conferences and all the rest. So here's a PDP governor fighting the internal party battle as to zoning or no zoning, but taking it even beyond that. by saying, if we want to be serious about restructuring, let us start from our party. I don't know what they mean by restructuring their party, but he combined the two. So it is impossible for even PDP to come and start talking about restructuring. Meanwhile, Peter Obi has said that there's nothing wrong with the 1999 constitution.
Yes.
And these are people, they are Yoruba people who are, even like I said, Faruchibi and all the rest of them, saying if he doesn't win, then there must be a revolution. What is the meaning of that? Meanwhile, it is only Yoruba people that are making this kind of pronouncements. You don't find the same pronouncements in Igbo land or among the Igbo people. You don't even find it among the Fulani or Hausa Fulani people, regardless of what they talk about. But every one of them agree to champion an anti-Yoruba or anti-Tinubu position. And that should send them a red signal. Every national liberation struggle, whether it's for sovereignty or not, has a point where the elite of the society and the masses come together in a sort of alliance or a front where they can proceed on their political. Now, when they now achieve their political aim, it can lead to a split, as we find in China, when Mao's forces, the communist forces, and the nationalist forces, the Kuomintang, they banded together to fight against the Japanese imperial army and all the rest. They got their independence, and then, of course, they turned against each other. That is how Taiwan became a country today.
Right.
And in other places, we see it in Catalonia, we see it in Scotland now. So different forces of the elite and the masses have to come together at some point to champion that common prospects, common expectation. But here, what they are doing is to create that division.
Right.
And more importantly, when they create the division, they don't even have the means to enforce that division. So at the end of the day, what they are doing is to encourage the outsider to come and take over power.
Right. Right.
So it's unfortunate, but that's the way I see it, and I hope the violence will be avoided, hopefully, because it is going to be detrimental. Because if the Yoruba nation now, people even say, well, we are still going to be making our demand, but we support our man to be there. Like you said, every election since 1959 is always between the three major nationalities in Nigeria. Every one of them. So, and each one, they know how to take care of themselves. The East and the North, they always collaborate, form an alliance when necessary, take over power. That's how it's always been. So why is it now? And, they conspired against Awolowo in 1959, conspired against him in 1979, again in 1983. And even the Abiola we are talking about, when they said everybody voted for him, everybody voted for him and all that. Bashir Tofa,
yes.
who contested on the NRC ticket.
Now, yes.
I don't know whether to use West or East, because I'm not sure whether it's still alive. He's a Kanuri man. He's not a Hausa Fulani. Bashir Tofa is a Kanuri man competing against a Yoruba man. And then the Yoruba man has a Kanuri as his deputy. And he has an Igbo. So at that point, the Fulani hegemons and stuff were out of the loop of political power. So that is one of the reasons their election was annulled. Because the Fulani are not near the circle of power at that time. Of course, they give different kinds of reasons, but that's a major terrorism. Now, the Kanuri are up against, in a sense, with being the deputy vice president for Tinubu, Kanuri and Yoruba again. But even the Obi thing, Obi is the only one that has, Obi has the Fulani, that's it, and then PDP has it. But if Tinubu wins, the Kanuri, the Fulani will be out of power for a long time.
Right.
Because, the Kanuri, by the time they share all the offices together, maybe they will be number 5 or number 6. So the real possibility exists that everything will be done to try to truncate a Tinubu victory by the Fulani hegemons. So when the Yoruba nation now are talking about either disrupting the election or no election and all that, and they miss that point, then their whole concept of nationhood is even called into question. Because what I would expect them to have done is simply, yes, we know the election is not going to solve the problem, but the reality is everyone has a candidate, at least the major candidates, they have a candidate, and we are supporting our candidate. Regardless, when the election is over, if we have any need to continue supporting him, we will. If not, we go our different ways. That's a simple political calculation. And that is what the Igbo are doing. They are not interested in Biafra. Let's forget about this Biafra crowd. They are not, because you can't be saying you are living a country when you keep describing yourself as nation builders. They will claim that they are nation builders. So, what is the meaning of Biafra when you are building Nigeria? So these are basic things that seem that the Yoruba nation of people seem to ignore. We are the nation builders. We own this place. We develop this place. We develop that place. We are the only ones who can find all over the country. We are this, we are that. And then you say you want Biafra. That means you either want to turn Nigeria into Biafra, or you are not going anywhere. Right. So if you want to turn Nigeria into Biafra, the Fulani want to turn Nigeria into their own enclave also. So at the end of the day, we are still the only ones that each one of them wants to conquer. So these are the realities. I didn't make it up. They say it. Even the last time, was it Uzodimma? I don't know. He's a governor in one of the states. Said that they are those that built Port Harcourt.
Yes, I read it as well.
So they say it openly. So if you build everywhere, then where are you going? It means you want to turn the whole place into your own here.
Yes. Let me ask a question right there. There have been these sort of movements between Yoruba, so to say, and the Igbos. Something like we have handshake across the Niger. There are some organizations that were formed, South and Middle Belt, or odds for. In the past, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, there have been all these moves to align the South together. But so far, so good, other than when they just make maybe pronouncement, or they say they usually communicate, there's really not been any solid fusion between the ethnic tribes in the southern parts of Nigeria. In which case, if we had that fusion, or if we have that fusion of the ethnic tribes in southern Nigeria, probably that would have been a formidable force against. It's not just against the North, because we do have progressive in the North as well, but that would be a formidable force against the yes, the Fulani hegemony that are actually getting into the southern Nigerian space and killing and maiming people with the president not saying anything. So if we don't have, so I'm going to bring it in two ways. The question I'm going to ask. So these different movements or attempts at bringing southern Nigeria together, if it's not been bringing any serious results or output, what do you think is the problem? That is number one question. The second question will be about, and this is from a discussion with people out there, and someone said, if Tinubu becomes the president, even if nothing, the Fulani killers and murderers that are in our forests, that they will automatically push back, because now they no longer have that federal power behind them. So I want you to first take the first part, where why is all the handshake across the Niger and what has been tried to bring southern Nigeria together, why is it not working? And secondly, on this claim that the person said that if Tinubu wins, and because he's not Fulani, that, because I think the first thing for every Yoruba person, and I believe for some other ethnic tribe, like in the Middle Belt and others as well, the first thing and foremost is about safety of life.
Yeah.
And their safety of life is connected to the Fulani invaders.
Yeah.
Most of the agitation we have now, especially within Yoruba, did not start until the issue of these Fulani killers, terrorists, started entering our forests. So do you think that, just like the person said, do you think this is probably what is going to happen? So I want you to do the first one on why things have been working in southern Nigeria, and the case of Tinubu's presidency, if will give a sort of a natural solution, not to all insecurity, but a sort of a natural solution to the Fulani invaders that are in our forest.
Okay. The first thing, in the first instance, the inability of the South to, let's say, unite has a historical basis. And then it is only one section of the South that is actually pushing it, and that is the West. So when you have two or more entities, and only one is the one pushing it, then you know that that idea itself is dead on arrival. Historically, it was the West that even, let's say, let's go back to the Nigerian youth movement. Let's go to the independence constitution. It was the West that was agitating for a federal constitution for Nigeria. It through the action group. It was the East. I'm not limiting it to the South, so I'm not going to use any North as an example. I'm going to use just the South. It was the East that scuttled it by aligning with the North. Okay. After independence, the story that Awolowo went to Zik, okay, yeah, you can be PM, I will be finance minister and all that. But Zik ended up forming an alliance with the North. The same thing in 1962-63, the crisis of Western region. The same thing in 1964-65, when the South, UPGA, United Progressive Grand Alliance, between the AG, NCNC, and some independent parties in the South, decided to boycott the 1964 general election. The action group boycotted in the West. The NCNC conducted the election in the East. They didn't boycott in the East. Then we come to even the war itself. The killings and all the rest were happening in the North when Bia and Ojukwu was the quartermaster general of the Nigerian army, by virtue of which he knew the strength and weaknesses of the Nigerian army. He didn't attack the North. It was the West that he attacked.
Right.
And he was coming to Lagos. And the killings that led to the proclamation of Biafra was in the North. And then they started blaming Awolowo. He was the one that said we should go. If we go, they will follow us. And blah, 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 and all kinds of crap like that. So you can see, and then of course 1979 up till the present. So you can see a series of what do you call it? Consistency in the betrayal,
Right,
by the East of the West. So if you are going to have a handshake across anyone, there must be two hands now. If one hand is leprous and the other hand is not, that is no longer a handshake. The hand that is healthy will just contact leprosy, period. So that means the problem is not about unity in the South. The problem is about the federation of the peoples, if it is possible, of Nigeria. And the only way it can be done is if all the nationalities, regardless of where they are, have their, shall we say, autonomy or whatever we want to call it. So instead of saying, let us have a handshake, the people we want to have a handshake with, they are claiming, and I did challenge one of them openly one day on a platform or something. When he was talking, I said he should mention any prominent Igbo politician or leader who has denounced the idea that Lagos is no man's land. None. None of them would denounce it because that is their mindset. So for the people you want to have a handshake with, their aim is actually to take over Nigeria. There's no doubt. All this talk about marginalization, it is because they failed in 1966. You know, like we said, you are arguing Ironsi was the one that cancelled the regions now. He was the one that destroyed federalism in Nigeria, and all the northern leaders simply built upon it. He was the one that cancelled it. And of course, we know the trajectory of the coup and all the rest of it. So they failed in the attempt to take over Nigeria in 1966, and then it led to the war, and then the war. So they have all, that is their aim. Right. And we have every one of them, including the one that a child that is born today, will be fed those lies so that when the child grows up, he will live on those lies. So there's no way to have any handshake. It will always come crashing down. That is why when they want to, or those who are talking about handshake now, when the whole thing about presidency must come to the South and blah, 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 and blah, 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 they are now saying, for the Yoruba among them, they are now saying, let us give it to the Igbo, because, you know, it's like just turning your eyes back, against history. So the solution is not in the handshake. You don't need a handshake to recognize the right of nationalities for autonomy. Yeah. So what you need to do is to create an environment where when they were having their constitutional conferences, and the Awolowo group said that there are minorities in Nigeria and that they should be recognized, and the Azikiwe group were saying that there are no minorities. Awolowo did not embark on any handshake anywhere now. He simply went to pick a minority, an Ijaw man, and took him to Britain to explain himself. And the German went to Britain and they said, look, this is our condition and this and this and this. That was when the Willings Commission was set up to address the question of minorities in Nigeria, because it was proven that they exist.
Yeah.
So when they talk about handshake, they are just running away from the problem. There's no need for it. What is, if Biafra or the Igbo people are serious about marginalization, nothing stops them from demand. Now, Yoruba people are the only ones that have been consistent on federalism since 1960.
Right.
So let them take up the charge and then demand what they want. When they it is a wrong approach. I mean, the whole question of handshake is not theoretically feasible. It's a wrong approach. The right approach is, we are all in this contraption and we don't like it. So let each one devise its own means and methodology within a general concept. And what does a general concept mean? Let us redefine what a federation is. Once we agree on what a federation is, that is the handshake. That is, if we want Nigeria to be a federation, this is the kind of federation we want it to be. Then each one will now plug itself into it. That's the only handshake that is necessary. All these razzmatazz, suddenly they are just wasting time, or rather befuddling the issues. That is that. I hope that is that, Abi.
Right.
on the Tinubu thing. Now, yes, it is the current federal government that is emboldening the activities of these terrorists or herdsmen or bandits or whatever it is that they call themselves. The fact that Tinubu becomes president does not automatically remove the threat.
Okay.
It can reduce the threat, but it does not automatically remove it. Why did I say so? He's not going to, as the president, he's not going to say, yeah, all you Fulani in the forest, go back to where you came from. I order you to go and go. He's not going to do that. I mean, if he does that, they will start another war with him. That is a dictator, he's this, is that, and all kinds of stuff like that. So, but what it will do is, number one, it will reduce the tempo of their activities. Then they will wait. That's how the terrorists will behave. They will wait and see what his regime or his administration is going to do that will affect them negatively in such a manner that they will now begin to redesign their strategies. So if Tinubu gets there and he gets bogged down with Yoruba Nation Now agitation, the terrorists will feel free to do whatever they want to do, because the Nation Now agitators Tinubu has to respond to it. Yes. Either to negotiate with them or fight them or do whatever. Meanwhile, while he's doing that, his presidency will be undermined. Therefore, it will embolden the terrorists. Now, if he's bold enough and say, okay, you Yoruba Nation people, go and sit down. I don't have time for you now. Let's deal with this terrorism first. And then he goes ahead and do it. Okay, fine. Now, beyond that, it is now the responsibility of Yoruba people to take that opportunity and turn it into their advantage. Okay. Because we have been saying Nigeria needs to be restructured. Everyone is saying it. Well, no matter how you define that restructuring. So for Tinubu himself and for Yoruba people themselves, we now have to put up a template for restructuring. That is the only way the activities of the terrorists can be curtailed effectively. For Tinubu to embrace, not only embrace, but be engaged in embracing it. Because when he embarks on that, when we embark, like the last time, what's his name, Governor Akeredolu was talking about arming Amotekun and all that, that they don't allow them to give them heavy weapons and all that. They won't allow them to give heavy weapons now because we are still operating under their laws and all that. So what you have done is simply to say you can play this role better than existing forces. And like we have said before on this program, when they arrest people, they can't prosecute them. They hand them over to the Nigerian authorities who will do whatever it is they want to do with them. So the power to prosecute, that is the judiciary and all the rest, must be taken back by the people themselves. That is so. If Tinubu becomes president, yes, one, initially it will reduce the tempo of their activities because they will say, where is our support? Now, if Tinubu is bold enough within 1 week of becoming the president and fire everybody that is concerned, sack them, then they will take notice. But if he is not going to do that and is just playing politics and stuff, they will wait by their time and then continue what they are doing. Now, if his presidency is now aided by a strong movement in the south or Yoruba land for restructuring and putting it on the table, that will permanently seal it. Because for us, the type of restructuring we have said it is right there in our write-ups and everything, the petition and everything. The control of the army, police, and everything must be local. We must have our own judiciary and all. So and we are not expecting it to be done by a Tinubu presidency.
Yeah.
But a Tinubu presidency can say, yeah, okay, go and debate it. Let's see how we can work it out.
Mm-hmm.
And not only to Yoruba people and other. So that alone will put a stop at least 70% to the activities before the mopping up operations will happen. So that's why it is necessary to be very to be strategic in what we are doing. So and then that will allow us to take advantage of any political opportunity that comes up, including and if Tinubu doesn't win, like we have been saying, if Tinubu doesn't win, but we have a strong template for restructuring, that alone, when we put it up, whoever is the president will have to either negotiate with it or fight it. And in the process of fighting it, the Fulani terrorists will be carrying out their activities all over the country, because there's nothing to stop them at that point. Because the focus of the president, who is not Yoruba now, and who is fighting us, will be how to destroy or dissipate our own energies while the usual stuff goes on. So the advantage of mobilizing the people, regardless of who wins, is the key to this issue. And then if a Tinubu presidency now comes, one, it will be difficult for Tinubu to say he wants to fight the Yoruba people. I mean, if he does, well, but I think it will be difficult for him to do that. But if both are combined, a Tinubu presidency, a strong push for restructuring based on the new federal structure, the federalists they will either go back to where they come from or surrender. Well, they will do something they won't be able to carry out what they are doing because, as the Americans will say, a new sheriff is in town. The new sheriff is not Tinubu, it is that movement for that restructuring that is in town. Because that movement is not going to be antagonistic to the presidency, to a Tinubu presidency, unless Tinubu presidency wants to be antagonistic to it. And like
Okay.
I said, any presidency that is antagonistic to it will just give the terrorists a free ride, because the focus will no longer be on the terrorists. It will be on those of us who are calling us agitators and this and that and that and that and that and that.
Yes, I
So that
think
is, yeah, go ahead.
one of the thing that people are having or people are
Yes,
saying is that with the thing that is in APC and then the way things has been, uh,
yes,
if since is the Fulani that are pushing or one way or the other, Tinubu was able to jagba from their
yeah,
hand.
yeah.
That would it not be just the same way it happened with Jonathan, that they'll be able to control Tinubu?
And well, yes and no. No, no, in the sense that it depends on the kind of movement Yoruba people are able to create towards the necessary restructuring. No, in the sense that, when Jonathan was there, in fact, his strategic advisor, I've forgotten his name now. He has a movement at that time called, he's dead now, Chikoko movement. I've forgotten his name. He had the opportunity to make that true federalism the agenda, but he didn't take it up. He was just there. All the people that surrounded him, from his Ijaw nationality, they were just busy buying properties in Abuja and, telling everybody that cares to listen that this is their time. So it is not the Jonathan presidency as it were, even if the presidency was cornered. The people, the job people that were fighting, that was the time we had men, we had Niger people, the volunteer forces, and all kinds of things like that, that were blowing up pipelines and all that. You will expect them to put enough pressure on the Jonathan administration and start taking certain independent steps. But immediately the Jonathan got there, it appears as if the whole thing died down. And then they now played up Jonathan as a victim of Fulani hegemony. Of course, you don't expect the Fulani to fold their arms. I told them, that's why I told earlier on this, that one of the reasons June 12th was annulled was because the Fulani is not even in the center circle. And the Tinubu administration is likely to face that, because his victory will mean that the Fulani are out of the park. That was what the northern governors recognized, that they simply threw their support behind him so that they can put their foot in the door. So with that, they will be playing their own power games. But it is more important for us to have a solid foundation of our own power game in Yoruba land. So that's why I said it will be difficult for a Yoruba presidency to fight the Yoruba mood for restructuring, more so when we have been consistent about it. And so even if they pocket him, if the Fulani forces pocket him one way or the other, we are not pocketed. Why are we not going to be pocketed? Because we have a solid plan on ground that whoever pockets him, we have to respond to. And we are not, so that, and it will not be for Tinubu to say, we are pipe down, we are go up, go low. No. But the capacity to do that, to build that strength, is being weakened by this nation, Yoruba nation, now with nothing to show for it. So if we can resolve that, then whether they pocket him or not will become irrelevant. But if we don't resolve that, that's why I'm a little bit hard I don't normally want to be criticizing them, but I think it is time we start facing the facts now and not just so the Jonathan allowed himself, well, whether they pocket him or maybe he wasn't, he said he wasn't even knowing what he was doing anyway. But the major movements that surrounded him, that were champions of self-determination in the Niger Delta, did not have a coherent plan of their own that is independent of Jonathan. And the major force, according to Jonathan himself, when this guy died, the guy that said is a strategic advisor, unfortunately, I've forgotten his name now, but he was the leader of the Chikoko movement in the Niger Delta. That it was through his instrumentality that he came up with the idea of the national conference. That's 2014 confab, which they didn't do anything with. So if they had not been, and from the stories we had, though, that the job people were just celebrating in Abuja, buying properties here and there, it is their time, and stuff like that. So once they get to that level, then the rest is history, as they say. So, but that is not to say that it must always be like that. And that is why we are cautioning our own people that, yes, because of the nature of Nigeria's politics, we are behind Tinubu. But while we are behind him, we also have our own agenda that if he wins, he has to abide by. If he loses, whoever wins, we have to abide by. So it's the program, the quest for true federalism, or restructuring, or autonomy, or self-determination goes beyond the person of who the president is. But that also means we don't discountenance the struggle for that president when it comes up.
Okay, thank you. I think it's Oronto Douglas you were trying to.
Yes, Oronto Douglas. Yes, Oronto Douglas. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
He was Jonathan's advisor on strategy, and he was the one that did most of the work on those things before he died.
Okay. So in essence, what you're pushing at is that the Yoruba nation now, or other groups that are championing a sovereign Yoruba nation, should be strategic. They should look at something that why they have their own. It's just like having a short-term, mid-term, and long-term view of the liberation. Starting from, let's say, for instance, that is just as an example, instead of having the members that there's not going to be an election in which a good number of the members have refused to register to vote. You are saying that is not wise, because that means they are disenfranchising the Yoruba people. And if the election goes ahead, then that means it's only those people that vote that their votes will be counted. And that would have disenfranchised a substantial population of Yoruba people. And that if, as an example, if Tinubu comes in, there is an opportunity for the movement we have, not just because it is Tinubu that is the focus, but it's actually the movement, the cause. And Tinubu being a Yoruba person, there are some things he will not do against his people. Or there are some things that the way there seems to be like the federal, and then this ones have been said even internationally as well, that the federal government at the moment is supportive of the Fulani herders
Yes.
that maiming and killing the people in the forest. Otherwise, if they are not, they, as a government, they know what to do.
Yeah.
So, but they've been quiet because so that if somebody like Tinubu gets there, that is not a Fulani, that will not resolve the problem totally. But then the Fulani herders there will not have that support. They won't be that bold to think that yes, they can do anything.
They can do
And
anything they
with
want.
it.
Yes.
So that will make them to pull back. Now, that does not answer the question of Yoruba nation, but it started to deal with some issues that will make the Yoruba nation movement itself to have more space to generate his narrative and its establishment. Because now that of the attacks by the Fulani herders or people on the farmers in Yoruba land and the Middle Belt, that one has reduced.
Yes.
And why Tinubu is there, that will not stop the agitation they are doing, but then it will be something that will also be taken to or that Tinubu will be taking on. That, listen, yes, you are the president now, but this is what we want.
Yes.
And then Tinubu will have to deal with it. I've taken it that has always been the position of Yoruba Referendum Committee. And
yes.
we also believe strongly that asking for Yoruba nation now, when there's not been a referendum on what the Yoruba people want, that it will be an exercise in futility because a president of a nation will only discuss and negotiate with a group that is representing the people.
Yeah.
So, and at the moment, we don't have that in Yoruba because we have the politicians that are fully happy to continue with the election in Nigeria, and those politicians are being voted for. It's not that they are just going there themselves and they taking up. They present themselves for election. People vote for them. The votes are counted, and then they are put in office. So we have some people in Yoruba that are happy with that, and they are in place. Then we have those people who believe that, no, we can't just go straight away because we don't have a Yoruba structure yet. So if we break away and our leaders are, facing different, there's going to be chaos in new nation because we don't have a leadership structure that encompasses all. And then you have the Yoruba nation. So we have those like strands which indicates that Yoruba hasn't got someone that you can put down and say, okay, this is the leader of the Yoruba. We know that during Chief Alagba Femi Awolowo, we did have some other French parties and individuals as well, but he seems to have this core. If they say a leader of Yoruba, at least over 80% of Yorubas took Chief Alagba Femi Awolowo as a Yoruba leader. If Yoruba had a nation during Chief Alagba Femi Awolowo era, there wouldn't be any problem setting up a structure because everybody takes him as the leader of the Yoruba. But we don't have that at the moment. So what you're saying is that the Yoruba nation now, great that they have passion, great that they're thinking about the people, great that they felt the pain that our peoples are facing in the forest, but to go for a battle, it demands strategy.
Yeah.
And that at the moment, the sort of strategies that they are pushing forward is almost not leading us to anywhere. And these are based on things that have happened in the past, things they've said will happen on so day, and it has to change. You are just advising them that it's got to a point where in September 2022, activities are going to start this time, especially with the campaign. We have to get our acts together. That we're pushing for Yoruba liberation shouldn't mean or shouldn't push us into disenfranchising our people from their constitutional duties.
Yep.
Until that constitution is taken away, that we should ensure that we do not unnecessarily shoot ourselves in the legs. Because if you don't take part and other people took part and their votes are counted, then whoever those people choose will definitely be over us, and they will decide what will happen to us and what will happen to our children.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, bringing us to Yoruba Referendum Committee's own position, I took it from the angle of Yoruba Nation so that we can see what is happening, the implication, the sort of advice they could be given, and then now coming to round it up on Yoruba Referendum Committee. And the straight thing you're doing is that the houses of assembly in Yoruba land, that they should pass the referendum bill, Yoruba referendum bill, before them into law. Yeah. And you are calling on the people that irrespective of the group they belong to, whether they belong to a group, a liberation group or not, whether they are political or apolitical, whether they are Christian or not Christian or whatever religion, that they should support this petition because, one, it will bring legitimacy to the demand for Yoruba liberation.
Yep.
Secondly, it will bring power to the people. And when the people make the decision, all the issue we are having with people criticizing, for instance, Professor Banji Akintoye, that will not be the case, because whatever cause that is going to be moved from the Yoruba referendum is going to be what the people have decided. It's not what one elder has decided, one this thing. So nobody will be accused that, no, he's just doing his own or he's just doing our. The message that will be carried forward on behalf of the Yoruba people will be what the Yoruba people themselves have voted, and they've decided that this is what we want. And you've mentioned in the past that the governor of Ondo State, Governor Akeredolu, has asked before that where have we as Yoruba people sat to decide that this is what we want for Yoruba liberation? And you are saying that this bill, if people support it, that will answer that question. Because for Governor Akeredolu to mention that, you know, he's a lawyer. So he knows the legality, and he was asking for the legality that where the people, he wasn't talking about where I as a governor or you as a leader of this group, said the people of Yoruba where did we make that decision that this is what we want? And so the bill that you have sent in would resolve that if that is passed into law. Also, we had Chief Femi Falana, who happens to be a human rights lawyer, also asked the same thing, that where did we conduct a referendum or a plebiscite, the Yoruba people? When did we give each Yoruba person the opportunity? I mean, those that are the voting stage age, where did we give them the opportunity to say, yes, this is what we want, before this group or that group or that group start to talk about, okay, we are going today. No, we are not going. We are going to bend down. No, we are going to rise up. And Chief Afe Babalola has mentioned something along that line as well. And you are saying that all these questions that is being asked, the Yoruba Referendum Committee already has a bill that is before the 6 Southwest States of Assembly. And we're calling on the people to sign the petition that has been set, so that even those reps at the state houses of assembly will know that it is the people that are demanding for their rights to talk and to say what they want. Now, on that, what is the update, if there has been any? And secondly, I know we've brought this up before, but we just want to ensure that some of the things that people have asked before, which we may possibly not have enough time to expand them, that we bring them up so that people can get further information about it. What power do we have to ensure that the houses of assembly in Yoruba land pass this bill into law?
It's very simple. Like I used to say, our power is derived not only in the numbers. Yes, we need the numbers, the understanding, when people come together and make a demand in a unified general manner. That is one way of getting the power. The second and most important way of getting the power, which I said is simple, is because the contradictions in the society itself will bring forth the need for that kind of resolution. We have mentioned it even in this program. By the time the elections settle down, someone will win, someone will, So let's say Tinubu wins, for example. So the question would be, okay, is he going to reverse everything that Buhari has done, remove all the things, bring all the stuff that he has taken to the north back to the west, or create new ones in the west and borrow money for doing that? Or are we going to say, let's give him 8 years? So if he has 8 years, then we back to square one. So, and if he loses, if it is the man that becomes president, and then they take over Lagos, and then kinds of things. And of course, if the PDP wins, we know that one is not even debatable. The Fulani has just started. If he wins, they will destroy both the APC, if it still exists, and the Labour Party and all the rest. So the contradictions in the society itself will mandate the kind of solution we are bringing about. That is a major level of power. Now, the ability to recognize that contradiction, or those contradictions, coupled with the numbers of people that are behind it, that will become what I would call the absolute power. And that is why everything we are doing, explaining stuff, talking to people, asking them to sign and do that is one level of it, to have the numbers. to have the people behind it to get the understanding or the need for it. Because what they are doing by doing that is to prepare themselves for the eventual contradictions that will land on everybody. So when you combine both, if you now have the numbers without an understanding of the contradiction, or if you have the contradiction, you have the understanding of the contradiction without the numbers, then there's no power. So both of them must be combined. So when we say sign this petition, we are preparing ourselves, we are strengthening ourselves, we are empowering ourselves for the contradiction that will come sooner than later, because we are not operating in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You know, when we started, some people said, we can have a opinion poll, and we have organized opinion polls, and we have so many people who sign. Okay, after the opinion polls, what happened? Nothing. The 5 million people, he said, if we have 5 million people, they will send it to the United Nations, and we will declare Odua Republic for Yoruba nation. What happened? They started fighting each other. But because we understand the contradictions that exist and that are coming, we are not moved by any of these things, because at the end of the day, it is because the Tinubu people, the Tinubu party is the dominant party in Yoruba land now, today.
Yes.
Maybe it will change after 2023, I don't know what. So if we keep on making the noise we are making, and they refuse to act, when the contradictions fall down, it will fall heavily on them. We will still be outside making our own demand, we may change tactics, but we'll still be making our own demands. But it will fall heavily on them in such a manner that they won't survive it. And it is very clear to everybody. So it pays them to key into what we are doing, and that's what we are telling them. Because they are doing. Now, if he wins, they can say, we don't need this again. Then when the Fulani wants to corner them, then they can fight their own battle if they want to fight it, the way they want to fight it. That is another aspect of it. If he loses, it will also be against them, even if they have the majority in the states, because they will still have to answer the presidency as they are doing now. So either way it is looked at, the only thing is whether the APC in the West are capable of understanding what we are talking about and knowing that the responsibility lies on them. If they don't understand it, we can help them. I'm not saying the Yoruba referendum committee, by virtue of the petition and the numbers of the petition will alert them to the dangers that they are facing and the possible repercussion and impact of what the outcome is. Some of them are aware.
Okay.
Because we interact with some of them. Some of them are aware. Some of them are scared, where do we go from here and all that. So it's not that they are unaware, they are aware. So how to get to the point of action, that is for them to pass the bill into law. That is where the crux of the matter is. And that can be done through several ways. We have mentioned it, both by the numbers that we have said, petition and this and that, direct and indirect contacts, challenging dominant political narratives that all the self-determination groups or Yoruba Nation now and all that are backing the wrong horse. They are moving in the wrong direction. If they can move back, accept their errors, we are not asking them to apologize, but simply move back and flow with the tide, then you will see things changing. So that is where the strength is, because when your strength comes by identifying not only your enemy, but your own forces, and understanding their weaknesses and their strengths. So when we say the houses of assembly, it's not simply because the APC is there or simply because we are supporting APC. That is a legitimate authority, whatever party that is in there. I mentioned earlier on when I said, what's the guy or your governor's name now, Makinde?
Makinde.
When he was talking about if the party cannot restructure, how can they be talking about restructure? So they know these things. They know these things. So the point in the petition and getting the numbers is to, one, assure them, people are behind them because they are demanding it, and to push them to do the thing. And more importantly, to get them to realize that the responsibility lies on them. If anything happens to Yoruba land tomorrow, or let's say in 2023, it is the responsibility of the houses of assembly and the APC party in the Southwest, that will take the responsibility for it if they don't act the way they should act. So that's where the strength comes from. And even if they don't act, and any scenario occurs, we are still coming back to the same situation, because anyhow you want to respond, the question still is, when did your people decide this is where they want to go? So if there is a doctrine of necessity or a military coup and all this, and the Yoruba people say, Yoruba nation now, we want to go. Go if you have the means. If you don't go, what do you do? If they have dissolved of the houses of assembly and there is no houses of assembly that will conduct a referendum, what do we do? Yes. How do we go about it? So these are scenarios that need to be looked at. It's not that there are no answers. If they say there is no, if they cancel all the houses of assembly tomorrow and say because of the situation in the country, we can't have election, we have administrators and blah, 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 blah. Very simple now. Shebi, that is where the petition comes in. That is where the petition comes in. Because even with such a state of emergency, you will still find Yoruba people that will be appointed as administrators. It will not only, unless the whole thing happens within Yoruba land only. If they declare Yoruba land, state of emergency only in Yoruba land, if it is caused by Yoruba people, then you can't say that you are being marginalized or anything. Yeah, that is what I call that for offer. So you have to devise another means of fighting it. But if it is a general thing that they will, because of the fear that the Fulani is going to lose out in the power equation, then they might as well dabaru the whole thing, like they did in 1993. Right. Then they are, when there's no, you have already, by that act alone, they have already created a room for a referendum. That's all we just need to demand. So it's not a question of sloganeering or anything. It's simply a question of knowing what forces are at play at whatever point in time. And that is where the strength will derive from, plus the number. So if we continue to sign it and get it done, and the difference between us and the 5 million people is we are not based on emotions. We knew of a time when they tried to try to ascribe ourselves as if we are on the same page, that we are doing the same thing. And we said, no, we are not doing the same thing. And ours is very clear and it is very well stated. So there's nothing about. So, and we are not even talking about United Nations yet or international community. Let's get ourselves together first. So there's no way it can be escaped. That is the strength in having that petition signed, while we also monitor continuing political situations so that we can respond adequately. Some people outside Yoruba land are beginning to even embrace what we are talking about. for their own people.
Yeah.
Not wholesale taking it, but they saw, yeah, this is a good thing. How do we go about it within the circumstances of their own conditions? They are asking the questions, and we are providing them our own views of the situation. Not that we are not leading them anywhere. We are just saying, this is the question, this is our answer. This is the question, this is our answer. And they are embracing it. So there's no the strength that I mean, maybe I over explained, but that's where the strength comes from.
Mm. Okay, thank you very much, Alagba Femi Odedeyi. And
Yes.
for those that have been with us, thank you for being with us for it's almost 2 hours right on
Yeah.
there, and I believe that people have got more information, particularly ahead of what we're expecting to happen
Yes.
in this
In
month,
this September.
September 22,
Ember,
essentially.
Ember month. Ember
Uh,
month.
yeah. So, in respect of United Nations, the 77th Assembly that is coming on next week, and of course, in which the President of Nigeria is expected to be in attendance, was also the lifting of campaign uh,
Yes.
which campaign starts off on the 28th of September. And lastly, is just that issue about the deadline that is set for the 30th of September. So that means quite a lot of things are happening. And then we've, together with Alagba Femi Odedeyi, you look into those things and where the Yoruba people, especially those that are in the liberation movement, needs to balance what they call balance, strategically balance their power, to look ahead of what could happen uh, moving forward, and then strategically placing ourselves in a position that will not undermine, eventually undermine what we've been doing for the past almost 2 years. In fact, some people have started even far, far, far back, even before. But so that it wouldn't be in vain, that we need to strategically position ourselves, but we can't if we do not understand what the issues and the problem is. So we'll be having you again in another 2 weeks. Hopefully, we'll get back to our usual time of 7 p.m.
7 p.m. Yes.
Yes,
Uh, yeah. I just want to quickly add something. I
yes.
just, when Professor Akintoye was talking about the United Nations lately, that, they can't just make a declaration and all that. He gave certain examples.
Right.
Like he said in Somalia, there's a place called Somaliland. They declared
Mm-hmm.
independence and nobody recognized them and they are just living their lives. Now, if that is what they have in mind, forgot to tell people that before Somaliland declared its independence, they had fought a 10-year war within Somalia itself
Yes.
after Saad Barre died. I mean, he came to Lagos. He was exiled to Lagos. So they fought for 10 years. It was after that war, they now declared themselves independent and nobody still recognized them. There are people in the diaspora are sending money to them to, I don't know how far that to take them. So that is a lesson that you just don't jump into this thing just like that. It's more. So I just said, let me quickly put that in. So that in case some people are expecting a declaration of Odua state in on October 1, be September 30, and then
Right.
they will expect maybe one country in Europe to come and support them. The only countries that can support such a move will be one of the big powers: France, United Kingdom, China, Russia, or the US. If any one of them supports Odua state at that point, on October 1, they make that declaration, all the other four powers will gang up against them.
That
And
is it.
then katakata will burst for Yoruba land. So let's be Yeah, I just said I should mention that. Yes.
No, it's important because people need to know the implications of these things. They would even when we look at the Bible says if you want uh, to go into the
The
house
house.
of a strong
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
uh, first of all you need to check. You don't just check your own power.
Yeah.
I have this social power. You need to check that strong man that you want to
Yeah.
uh, infiltrate or
Yeah.
attack. You
Mm-hmm.
check how powerful is this, what strategy has he got, in which way could this man come against me, and this will and go. So
Yeah.
for us and for generally for all those people that are involved in Yoruba liberation movement, is not just looking at, yes, this is what we have, this is what we do. Let's begin to also think about the people that we're against. What can they do? What powers do they have? What strategy? And we have all these things in our history. If we sit down to read and study our history very well, we will see that we've been where we are now, we've been there before. So we need to go back and check when we got to this junction in the past, what did we do? Our fathers and co, then what did they do? Where did they get it wrong? So that we don't make the same mistake. So we will obviously in another 2 weeks, I think we'll just be maybe at the tail end of that, we will have crossed the United Nations attendance.
Yeah.
And
And
then
we are waiting for the September 30th.
September 30th. So we'll keep track on that. Let me remind those people that are watching us, whether those that are watching live or those people that are watching later on, that there's a petition right on there. In fact, just go on Google and type Yoruba referendum petition. If you just put Yoruba referendum petition, it will bring that change.org page. You only need to sign. You don't need to do any other thing. You don't need to pay any other money. Just sign and just spread it. Let other people know about it. We believe strongly that where we are today, in fact, what has been said before, that in the best way that we can protect our elders, somebody like Professor Banji Akintoye is an elder. It shouldn't be the one that will be running away from home and go and hiding somewhere and couldn't come to see his people. So the strategy to ensure that our elders are protected and preserved is the strategy that the Yoruba Referendum Committee is using. Because if it is the people that decided it, then the government cannot be chasing Baba Akintoye, the one that is causing the problem. No, it's because if people have, through a referendum, voted that this is what we want, then whoever is leading it, the government will not see that person as the troublemaker, because they will know that this person is carrying the message of the people. And that's where the power lies, where we're able to allow the people, and that's the strategy. Let the people speak, and then you simply tell the government, this is what my people have said. And since the government too is aware, then it wouldn't be that, no. So we want people like Igbo, they shouldn't be running about or being scared to come to his own home and his own people. And this thing has been on before now, even before the Igbo issue. This petition and this bill is been on to say that let's pursue it this way, where not individuals will be the target of the government. Is the Yoruba people, the Yoruba populace, that the government has to fight. And of course, we know when it gets to that, the government cannot fight the entire Yoruba people. We need to get that power back to the hands of the people. So please do sign that petition and spread the word. Also, we've said it, once campaign starts, remind anyone that comes to campaign to you that what is your position on the Yoruba referendum bill. So, and remember, the bill is not about, okay, we don't want you. No, we want you. We don't like your party. What you are simply telling them is that we have a right to decide what we want. So you that you are coming to us for our election, go and sign it or give a public word on it that support it, just for my people to say their right of say to exercise it. That's simply what we're talking about, and that's what we're asking. So once again, thank you for everyone that have joined us, and most especially Alagba Femi Odedeyi. Thank you so much for your time today, and we hope to see you in another 2 weeks by God's grace.
Thank you. Amen. Amen. Thank you very much.
You are most welcome.
Thank you for listening, for all those who are watching.
Thank you, sir.
All right.